Have you ever noticed a person who always tries to please people? They perform themselves often. The performance starts subtly, a slightly altered tone when speaking to certain people, a particular posture adopted in specific settings, a way of presenting that feels more impressive than the everyday self. Over time, these performances calcify into a fixed presentation, a curated version that eclipses the original almost completely. Eventually, the performer forgets that a performance is occurring at all. The constructed version becomes the only version they recognize, and this inflated image, maintained through constant effort while appearing effortless, replaces any contact with what they actually are beneath the display. This is the swaggering idiot type in Gurdjieff's classification. They build and live within this swag personality, not occasionally putting on airs or situationally adjusting presentation, but inhabiting a permanent state where self-importance has colonized consciousness. Every interaction gets filtered through a single question that operates constantly in the background. How am I being perceived? This perception, carefully managed and anxiously monitored, determines everything about how life gets lived. This isn't confidence, because genuine confidence emerges from capability verified through experience, from understanding grounded in actual knowledge, from presence that doesn't require external confirmation to maintain stability. What operates here is something entirely different. An elaborate construction requiring perpetual maintenance, dependent on continuous validation, prone to sudden collapse when circumstances deny the admiration it demands. You can watch how the mechanics unfold in ordinary conversation. The topic matters less than whether it provides an opportunity to demonstrate superiority, to display knowledge, to establish dominance. Information gets shared not to illuminate, but to impress. Stories are told not to connect, but to elevate. Every contribution serves the single purpose of reinforcing the image being projected, and if genuine exchange or authentic connection gets sacrificed in the service of that image, the loss goes completely unnoticed. The pattern reveals itself most clearly in how contradiction gets handled. If you present evidence that challenges the inflated self-image, their defensive machinery activates instantly. Not a genuine consideration of whether the challenge might be valid, but immediate mobilization of resources to protect the constructed identity. Rationalization, dismissal, and sometimes outright hostility emerge to prevent the threat from penetrating the carefully maintained facade. This response isn't a conscious strategy. The person experiencing it genuinely feels attacked, genuinely perceives the challenge as unreasonable or malicious, and genuinely believes their defensive reaction represents justified protection of truth rather than recognition that it's actually a mechanical defense of illusion. The identification with inflated self-image runs so deep that any threat to the image feels like existential danger, triggering protective responses. The emotional center in this type operates entirely in the service of self-feeling, not the range of genuine emotions that arise from authentic engagement with life, but the narrow spectrum of feelings that reinforce or threaten the inflated identity. Pride when recognition arrives, satisfaction when superiority is demonstrated, anxiety when validation seems uncertain, rage when challenges appear. Everything filtered through how it impacts the constructed self-image. Nothing is experienced directly without this distorting lens. The intellectual center contributes elaborate justifications for why the inflated self-image represents accurate self-assessment rather than mechanical construction. Impressive vocabulary gets deployed. Sophisticated concepts are referenced. All of this intellectual activity serves a single function, maintaining the illusion that the performance is reality. Even the physical center participates in this comprehensive deception. Posture always tries to convey authority. Gestures emphasize importance that may be entirely manufactured. Tone suggests confidence that may be wholly dependent on circumstances remaining favorable. The body becomes an instrument for projecting the inflated image, and after years of this performance, the physical presentation feels natural. Modern culture provides endless fuel for this pattern, while rarely exposing its mechanical nature. Professional environments reward those who project confidence regardless of whether actual capability justifies it. Self-help culture promotes believing in yourself without distinguishing between genuine self-knowledge and inflated fantasy. The swaggering idiot navigates these conditions with ease because everything reinforces rather than challenges the fundamental delusion. Now, let's observe how this pattern operates across time. Success arrives and gets interpreted as confirmation of superiority rather than a result of favorable circumstances or others' contributions. Failure occurs and gets explained away as others' fault, as bad timing, or as anything except an indication that the inflated self-image might not match reality. Every experience gets processed through filters designed to maintain the construction, and over the years of this selective interpretation, the gap between self-image and actual being grows to chasmic proportions while remaining completely invisible to the person living within the delusion. The dependence on external validation creates peculiar vulnerability despite the appearance of supreme confidence. Remove the audience, withdraw the admiration, and the entire structure becomes unstable. The person who seemed supremely self-assured reveals themselves as fundamentally dependent on others' reactions, requiring constant feeding of attention and approval to maintain the inflated state. Without this fuel, deflation threatens. The terror of encountering what exists beneath the inflation drives desperate efforts to restore the validating conditions. This creates an exhausting existence even when appearing effortless. Constant monitoring of how one is being perceived demands tremendous energy. Perpetual management of impression requires continuous effort. Defending the image against all threats drains resources that could be directed toward actual development. But none of this gets recognized as cost because the swaggering idiot experiences the maintenance of a false personality as simply being themselves. Gurdjieff emphasized that genuine development begins with seeing one's nothingness, recognizing how little actually exists beneath the mechanical patterns. The swaggering idiot stands furthest from this recognition because the entire pattern has been organized precisely around avoiding this awareness. Development cannot begin until this recognition occurs, not through deliberately destroying confidence or cultivating false humility, but through genuine seeing of what is. Seeing that what appears to be a solid self is actually an elaborate construction. What feels like authentic confidence is actually desperate dependence on external confirmation. This rarely happens through gradual realization. Usually, only dramatic failure or undeniable humiliation creates sufficient cracks for reality to penetrate. In that moment of collapse, two possibilities exist. The first and most common, immediate reconstruction of the image, perhaps slightly modified but fundamentally unchanged. The failure is getting incorporated into the narrative as a temporary setback rather than as a revelation of the pattern's falseness. The second possibility is sustaining the recognition without immediately fleeing back into familiar swagger. Remaining present to the seeing that the confidence was constructed, the superiority was just a delusion. This requires tolerating discomfort so intense that most cannot bear it for more than a moment before seeking relief in new forms of the old pattern. Developing the capacity for real self-observation means learning to notice the performance while it's occurring, rather than only after it's concluded. Catching the moment when the tone shifts to sound more impressive, recognizing the impulse to share something primarily to demonstrate superiority. Seeing the defensive reaction activate when the image faces a challenge. Each instance of catching creates a tiny separation between awareness and mechanical pattern, gradually building the possibility of consciousness that doesn't immediately identify with whatever image presents itself. This work proceeds slowly and demands persistence that the swaggering idiot typically lacks because it produces no immediate validation, generates no admiring response, and creates no impressive display. The audience for genuine self-observation is internal rather than external, and someone whose entire existence has been organized around managing external perception finds working without that validation nearly impossible to sustain. The swaggering idiot exists in those who have ever inflated their importance, constructed an impressive image, identified with a performed self while losing contact with actual being. Some of the most successful people remain trapped in this pattern throughout their lives. Their achievements are real, their capabilities genuine, yet everything gets filtered through inflated self-perception. Inner development never occurs despite impressive external accomplishments. The work against this psychological pattern begins in the space between seeing the illusion and returning to it. In the moment when the choice becomes visible, when you genuinely choose to be simple and mellow, when your mind orders you to stay stiff and proud. Gurdjieff's teaching offers no comfort here. Genuine being doesn't appear through affirming constructed images or validating inflated self-perceptions. It emerges through brutal honesty about the actual state and through the realization of nothingness beneath the performance. This is the deflation. When it comes, it feels like death to the swaggering self. The inner work is impossible before the end of Swaggering Idiot. Before we wrap up this episode, I want to pass on a method that I found helpful. Next time you act arrogant or feel superior to someone, look up and tell yourself that you're entering a world of swaggering idiots. This simple practice not only keeps me away from the delusional world, but also reminds me to stay closer to my genuine being. If you find this video helpful, give a like and share with someone who might need this. If you're new here, join our community by subscribing to the channel.